everyone. So my name is Kondratenko. I'm coming from the company called Frost & Sullivan, and I'm really excited to be here today in this city with an unpronounceable name, as Rafael said, Szczecin, speaking about the key and hot topics in the future of automotive and transportation industry. So before I begin with my presentation, I would like to briefly introduce the company. So Frost & Sullivan, we are a business intelligence and consulting company. We are working in different domains, also including automotive and transportation industry, which I'm coming from. So together with the OEMs, suppliers, governments, and associations, we are working together to identify hot topics, new business opportunities, and new business models in this area. Apart from the project for the Ministry of Energy, recently we worked together with the Polish Association of Alternative Fuels, PSPA. We prepared a big report on the future of electric vehicle market in Poland. We have analyzed different scenarios of the market by 2040. So if you're interested, please reach out to me. I'll give my contact details in the end. So let's begin with the presentation. Okay, so when we are talking about the future of mobility and the key trends which are influencing the automotive and transportation industry, we can speak about the 8 different themes and topics which are having this impact on the topic. The first one is digital transformation and data monetization. So the vehicles, they're becoming more and more connected, they're communicating with each other. They're becoming more like a smartphone on wheels, constantly being in communication with each other and the environment they are into. And from that, a lot of data is being collected, and this data, plenty of data points, dozens and dozens, different angles of the vehicle and also of the environment within and outside the vehicle, it can be used and it can be monetized in the new business models. The next topic is, so we are seeing that there will be more and more automation in the automotive and transportation industry. Autonomous shuttles, robotaxis, we see that companies like Waymo, Uber, they were testing and they're still testing the autonomous driving vehicles. But of course, it's still a lot of technological and legislation things that should happen to have the vehicles fully automized on the roads, but it's ongoing. The third topic, what we see, we are seeing beyond cars. Okay, flying cars and drones now are being tested, especially in last mile delivery and logistics by such big companies, e-commerce companies like Amazon, for example. They're testing drones, but also flying cars for not only goods transportation, but for people transportation is an upcoming topic as well. The next thing is, so we are seeing how the industry is moving towards new business models in terms of ownership and usership. So now people are more into usage of cars. For example, new models like subscriptions. We are used to subscription models in entertainment industry like Netflix or Spotify, and now the same thing is happening in cars. So you can pay a fee for a car, and you can have it for even up to a few months, and then you can replace it. The next topic, what we see, we are looking into new mobility solutions which are already existing around us. So like car sharing, ride hailing, carpooling, these are already new mobility solutions which are part of usership business models, and they will be just developing even further. And important thing is the growth of electric cars. Due to the legislation, environmental concerns, more and more electric cars are on the roads, and the technology is improving, and the range of such cars is improving as well. So there will be a situation when we as consumers, we won't have this range anxiety, and we will be able to drive on large distances clean and silently with these cars. So a few last but not least points. These are like, we have to consider economic situation as well if we talk about not only electric cars, but also about car industry itself. For example, China, which is the largest market for cars, last year it noted, for the first in over 2 decades, it noted a negative growth of the market. So the car manufacturers, players in this area, they need to come up with solutions how to fight this downturn and this slowdown in the economy. And just to sum up these topics, in the future we will see new scenarios how the cars are being used. They will be integrated, connected, autonomous, shared, and electric. When we talk about connectivity, we see that due to this data that's being collected, we can monetize and create new revenue streams from the data and from the analysis of such data. For example, now we have this mobility as a service solutions that I mentioned, car sharing, ride hailing, they're already there. But in the future, additional revenues which will be coming from the car manufacturers, for example, feature of on-demand. Imagine you have a car on the subscription model, you pay a specified fee each month, and you're driving mostly in the cities. And this also another interesting thing, user-based insurance. So the insurance which will be paid specifically per each trip based on all the conditions of each specific trip. This will be all possible through the data monetization and through the big data analysis. Speaking about this connectivity, there are 3 steps how the car manufacturers can successfully implement the strategy if it comes to data monetization and collecting all this data that comes from the car. So from the cost efficiency, cost optimization through big data analysis, such car manufacturers can move further to creating additional services and attracting more customers and eventually creating a community of customers with high level of retention and with shared sense of community. So now we see Tesla is the one example of the car manufacturer which does this, and we see that other manufacturers will follow. Data monetization. There are different areas and aspects how you can monetize this data. So there can be direct revenue streams coming from navigation services, telematics, and insurance solutions, or it can be also indirect revenue streams so we can improve overall efficiency, overall infrastructure around the car when we use the data which cars collect, and then the even road network will be improved using this data. Speaking about the autonomous cars, we see that by the year 2030, around 18 million cars will be highly automated. This meaning at least level 3 and 4 of the automation. In level 4, it's already a highly autonomous car which can drive by itself in a specific dedicated and selected modes of transportation. As you can see on the screen, on the graph, level 5, it's still not there. So there is still a lot of things which has to be done to improve the technology to this perfect level of connectivity that we need 5G for autonomous cars, for highly autonomous cars. We also need legislation, and we need really perfect road conditions and overall environment. But still, even speaking about level 3 automation, now the example can be that Audi with the model A8, it can drive in the level 3 automation level in the area of highway up to 40 kilometers. So it's mostly when there is a traffic jam on the highway, the car can drive it by itself. But if it can see that something is wrong, the car will ask you as a driver to get back to the steering wheel. So it's not the highly automation yet, but we see that the car manufacturers, they're not even looking into level 3. They're working from level 2, which is now as a driving assist features, and Tesla is one of the examples of level 2 automation. They're looking from this leap from level 2 to level 4. And by that, they can already develop their capabilities. And when the legislation will be ready, they will launch level 4 automation features on their cars. So if it comes to automation, we see that there is a big revenue potential for this area, up to $200 billion by already 2030. Majority of this will come from the autonomous shuttles, autonomous taxis. Over 65% of these revenues will come from these modes of using automation. But there are also additional things which can be monetized, like we can cluster these solutions into 4 different domains: mobility, automation, vehicle services, and so on and so forth. So with automation, with autonomous shuttles, the price of transportation can decrease even to $0.5 per 1 kilometer driven, which is now, considering that we have a driver in most of the cases, and the driver in transportation is the main cost for the companies that do transport, and for taxi companies, for example. But when we can exclude the driver from the picture, then with the scale, then we can achieve really low prices, and by that, the scalability is enormous of these services. So in the future, the car itself will be like a device in an integrated and shared business of moving people and moving goods. So with the car, especially if it's highly autonomous car, it will be like a living room on roads. So you will not be even having a steering wheel in such car. You can enjoy your time while being moved to from point A to point B. You can do all your stuff which you can do apart from being a driver, which is actually, it's a waste of time if you just drive and you cannot do anything else. So by that, the new opportunities also arise in the entertainment area, for example. The cars can entertain you in the future while you're enjoying the ride. So the car will become this important device, important part of the everyday connected living life. Speaking about new mobility solutions, while such services like mobility as a service, car sharing, ride hailing, they're already pretty big if we're speaking mostly about large cities, but they will double in the next up to 7 years. By 2025, we expect that the number of vehicles in car sharing will exceed even half a million of cars globally. With ride-hailing, it's even more. It's 15 million cars on the roads. Ride-hailing is Uber and similar applications. Also important to consider here that part of mobility will be also services connected with electric cars, and overall the charging as well. You can monetize, as now BMW is working, for example, on the application where they can be an aggregator of charging solutions. So they can aggregate different chargers located in the area, and they can just, in one click, you can see all the chargers around, and you can use this one application just to be able to charge your car at any given location. So even if we speak about the traditional leasing solutions which exist now, they will also be transformed and changed, driven by the changing consumer patterns, and also driven by more and more advanced technology in the area. So we can expect that the leasing will be also shared among different individuals, and they can be using this car at different times when they just need the car, because most of the time when we have a car, this car is just idling without any any purpose. So these new solutions, if it comes to leasing, will be also based on efficient and 100% utilization of such cars. 100 maybe it's too ideal, but as high as possible. And also, speaking about electric cars, because most of these cars, they're pretty expensive at the moment, but of course the price will drop as the technology is developing, as the battery packs are becoming cheaper and cheaper. But still, such cars, they will be mostly used, not owned. So leasing, EV leasing is a new area where the leasing companies should go into. And also, ride-hailing is another opportunity for captive financial companies of OEMs and also of independent leasing companies. They can target these ride-hailing companies to provide them with the financing options and with the cars, and by that they can scale. Consider also that the economic situation globally is now showing that the global car sales are flattening. This can be also a solution how to keep this business of selling more and more cars through these partners in ride-hailing companies, for example. Speaking about electrification and alternative powertrains, there are several aspects, several challenges for the car manufacturers which are existing there. So the first thing is environmental concerns and legislation. So European Union is setting more and more tough targets for CO2 emission reductions. So electrification is the only thing at the moment where how the car OEMs can meet these targets. So this is one of the challenges for the car OEMs, but it is also one of the drivers why the electric car market is developing. Another aspect, it's the change of consumer behavior and consumer preferences. With being able to enjoy ride in more and more technologically advanced cars with plenty of infotainment and entertainment features, these features, they all require a lot of computing power and a lot of energy. So electric cars, this is a natural thing, natural state how such computing power can be possible even. The third thing, that the decline of diesel combining with this improving norms for lower emissions, especially in the European Union, with the decline in diesel, we can see that the level of CO2 emissions, while it has been declining year to year, but last year in Europe, the CO2 emissions, because of the radical decline of diesel, they increased again. So electric cars, it's also an answer how to fight this problem of declining diesel and how to meet the emission targets. And last but not least, this is the really important challenge and the problem which has to be overcome together by the car industry. So the issue of profitability. Electrification requires a lot of efforts, requires a lot of investment to develop completely new architecture, completely new platforms. And by that, because the cars are still quite expensive and the customers, the first thing what they care about, it's of course the cost. So now the market for electric cars is usually driven by the subsidies in most of the countries. That's how the customers really want to buy them, if they have some tax reductions or subsidies. So, but eventually this public support will phase out. So the car manufacturers need to work together, need to create shared platforms for electric cars to be able to save on costs and also achieve the highest possible scalability in this area. So speaking about the forecast of electric cars, they are already there. They are already growing and there is no way back. So last year there were already 2 million cars globally sold, electric cars. Of course, the Chinese market is the main here. over 55%, over 1 million cars were sold only in China. And this is the main market where the key OEMs, they are building specific models only for the Chinese market, because the government is really pushing there with this new energy vehicle policy. Every car manufacturer which is present in China, it has to meet a specific norm, specific quota of electric cars that are being sold in China. If they don't meet these targets, then there should be some fines, some penalties. So this is really hard push from the Chinese government, and we expect that in the nearest future, China will still be dominating the area of electric cars. So by 2030, we can expect over 40 million electrified cars sold globally, which is around 1/3 of total sales of cars. And by 2021 or 2022, the share of ICE engines, it will drop below 90%. And for the foreseeable future, of course, conventional hybrids will be also dominating. But eventually, the share of fully electric cars, because with these cars you can meet the targets that are being set by the governments across the globe, they will be pushing and they will be increasing their share without any doubt. And also, important thing here, hydrogen cars. While no one is really speaking about them at the moment, because currently car OEMs, they are working on more fully electric powertrains rather than the hydrogen. But this is also a very clean source of transportation, and eventually it can be even a next step after battery-driven cars. There can be hydrogen-driven cars. But we will see how the technology will emerge and how the key players in the area will think about the future and will think about further plans of their alternation of powertrains. Speaking about the revenues in the automotive industry, previously, traditionally, majority of revenues of car OEMs came from just upstream services, like selling a car. Okay, you sold the car, great, you got your money, and then you're producing more cars and selling more. But now we're seeing that it's becoming more and more difficult. So the future is in downstream services. So we expect that the downstream services, they will increase from nearly 31% in the recent years to even half of the total revenue potential in the automotive industry by 2025. So the main area of this increase, it's mobility services and also aftermarket and repair and maintenance solutions. So with this, car manufacturers, they really need to change their approach to how they done business before. So they need to become an integrated mobility provider. So eventually, how the cars of the future will look like, we can use this acronym, My Place. So this is the convergence of technology and services. So the cars of the future, they will be autonomous, connected, electric, and they will be also mostly leased by the OEMs or by the leasing companies. They will be also very smart. It will be part of the wider Internet of Things ecosystem, and they will be also used as shared, and they're also used in these mobility solutions. And just to sum up, we can look beyond the current state of things and look how the potential scenarios of the car industry will look like. So now we have new mobility solutions. We are already seeing this. Eventually, there will be a platformization of transport. The transport will become an integrated and shared mean of moving goods and moving people. Eventually, we will see that the car will become, as I mentioned before, it will become a living room on the road, on wheels. And if we look even beyond that, we can expect that the transportation of people and of goods will be happening not only on land in this two-dimensional area, but it will also be possible even with the flying cars in the air, and even beyond that, in the stratosphere, and even in the orbital area of planet Earth. So let's all work together to make that happen, to be a part of this science fiction thing, which we can think that it's a science fiction now, but it can really become a reality if we work together and if we develop all the exciting things together. And thank you for your attention.